always thought Canadians had some common sense to. I don't think that's still true, because some of the things that are going on. There's good news and bad news coming out of Canada. Ezra Levant is with us now. He's a Rebel News founder. It's kind of like the Blaze up in Canada. He is the host of the Ezra Levant Show, and he's here to tell us the happenings this weekend. Let's start with the big standing ovation that was given to a Canadian Nazi. Ezra.
Glenn, it's absolutely crazy. Yaroslav Hunka is the name of a former Nazi SS officer. So I'm not just talking about some regular GI in the Wehrmacht who was conscripted and just fought in a tank. I'm talking about someone who volunteered to be part of Hitler's elite Nazis in Ukraine. Now, he's 98 years old, and he's been living a very low-profile life in Canada. So unlike some other Nazis, he hasn't been hunted down by the Mossad. Imagine how surprised he must have been to receive a phone call that he would be the honored guest in Parliament when Justin Trudeau welcomed Vladimir Zelensky on Friday. And he was just like in your American State of the Union address, where they point the camera at someone in the audience and they give him a shout out and everyone gives him applause. They literally did that for Yaroslav Hunka, a 98-year-old Nazi SS officer. But they didn't introduce him that way, Glenn. They said he, quote, fought the Russians.
Well, the Nazis did that. Hitler did that.
That's right. Amongst other things, they also fought the Poles. They also fought the Jews. And this guy, Hunka, couldn't believe it. He's been hiding in Canada for 70 years. And then in the twilight of his life, he's cheered and he raises his fist and he gets a standing O. But later on, and I did a little bit of digging here, I thought, well, who is this guy? And he was one of 2,000 Nazis that sort of sneaked into Canada after the war. They went to Argentina and other Latin American countries, and 2,000 of them came to Canada. And don't tell me they didn't know. Don't tell me you don't have a guest of honor at our version of a State of the Union address where the entire parliament is assembled. Don't tell me when Vladimir Zelensky comes, they have a very high security, vetting everybody rule. Don't tell me they didn't know who this guy was. They absolutely knew who he was, Glenn.
Here is the interesting thing to me. They cheer in Parliament an actual SS Nazi, and yet they accuse, half of Canada, anybody who stood behind the truckers, they accuse them of Nazis and threaten to put them all in jail.
Well, that's a good way to understand Justin Trudeau. He calls himself a male feminist, but he admits that he sexually assaulted a woman named Rose Knight. He just said, she experienced it differently. He calls you a racist, but he's the guy who dressed up in blackface so many times he says he lost count. He calls everyone he doesn't like a Nazi, including Jewish people. He called a Jewish MP a Nazi. He called a black MP a Nazi. But he's the one leading the standing ovation for an actual Nazi, not Nazi-linked or Nazi vibes. This guy was out there with his gun obeying der Fuhrer. And it's just incredible. And the kind of mop-up work that the media party is doing, Glenn, is just incredible.